What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today's video is going to cover the Deathless Necropolis run, a full overview of the paths that you can take, the champions to use on those fights, and just kind of a general summary of the Deathless run from my perspective. I've done it 2 times now. I did it on my free-to-play account, fully itemless, and then I did it on my main account day 1 in 0 revives. So I have experience using the champions at different ranks. For my free-to-play account, every champion was rank 3 7-star. For my main account, Thanos and She-Hulk were rank 3, and everybody else was rank 2. So just jumping straight in to kind of explain the best paths to take, I'd say there's probably a tie for the best 2 paths, because I think 2 of the paths are relatively easy. So the paths I'm referring to here are Titania, Sauron, and then from there you can either go APOC or Guardian. Now, the easy path for path 2 is definitely APOC. He's definitely the easiest of the 3 in section 2 of the left side. So I highly recommend whatever path you go on, if you decide to go on the left side, go up the middle to APOC. That is definitely the easiest way to go, and I'll explain more about that later, but I want to talk about the beginning sections first. So, for my runs, I went down Titania twice, but you can definitely go down Sauron. I know many people who have gone down the Sauron path and had a lot of success doing that. So I highly recommend, if you haven't seen both my itemless run and Suida's itemless run, we both took different paths to start. I believe he went the Sauron path, and then I went the Titania path. So both of them are very, very plausible with the Deathless team, and are definitely considered the easiest paths. So going down the Titania path, from my experience, from the runs that I did, you're going to want to use She-Hulk for Titania. You're going to want to use Guillotine for Vision Arcus. You can use Guillotine, King Groot, or Thanos for Omega Sentinel. Lots of options here. Kind of the same thing for Airwalker. You can use Thanos, She-Hulk, or Guillotine. Any of those work very well. Captain Britain can really be done by any champion. If you have a high-ranked 7-star Vision, I believe he can solo this fight, but I believe he'd probably need to be rank 3 and maybe slightly boosted. Vision is not really meant for like path clearing. He's meant to have an option for the phase 4 of Grandmaster. But you could use Vision here, and he could do well. But you can literally use anybody for this Captain Britain. For Wiccan, you want to use She-Hulk. I guess you could use Deathless Guillotine, but I probably would advise against it. She-Hulk is just way too easy to use here. And then for Psycho Man, you can use either King Groot or Deathless Thanos. Those would be your 2 best options for Psycho Man. And then going up to the APOC path, for Apocalypse himself, it is highly advisable to use She-Hulk, although you can use Guillotine, you can use Thanos. Both of those champions would work in addition to She-Hulk. For Tigra, it's a very, very simple She-Hulk fight. It's probably her best fight in here outside of Wiccan and Dragon Man. This is one of the easiest She-Hulk fights on the entire lane, so I highly recommend She-Hulk here. She is the best for it by far. She counters the entire fight basically with that fear passes from the heavy attack, bypassing miss, and then she's also immune to rupture with Synergy Team, so it's pretty nice. And then we get to this fight. So, Hercules, I would say, is the worst fight on the entire path. I don't believe I've seen a solo of Hercules yet with any of the champions. Maybe if someone goes at this with a rank 3 fully boosted 7-star Deathless Guillotine, they could maybe get a solo, but even then it would probably be cutting it very close. The strategy that I employed for Hercules was I used Deathless Guillotine for the first 60 to 70% of his health. You can easily do that with Guillotine. It's very simple to just get the first couple of phases down, phase 1 and phase 2, just knocking him down, removing the protection, and letting the degen damage tick Hercules down. And then once you get to phase 3, I found it way more enjoyable to use King Groot. So if you go and watch my itemless run that I uploaded, I ended up using King Groot for the last 35% of this Hercules, and he did very, very well. So I highly recommend King Groot for phase 3 of Hercules. She-Hulk also works. I did use She-Hulk on my main account run when I did that on Wednesday, and She-Hulk did work, and she did end up able to finish the fight from like a 30% threshold or something like that. So for phase 3 specifically, She-Hulk, King Groot are amazing, and I suspect Thanos also does pretty well just because of that guaranteed damage from the Special 3 Corrosion. So then looking at Captain America Sam Wilson, you can use She-Hulk here, you can use Thanos, you can use King Groot. My preferred option was King Groot, but Thanos also works here just fine. Dragon Man, very easy She-Hulk fight. The same can be said for these final two fights here. Captain America, definitely use She-Hulk here. She's the go-to. And then Nova, you can use really anybody you'd like. Guillotine works fine. She-Hulk is great. Thanos is great. King Groot is great. So anybody really works for that Nova fight. And then Grandmaster, your best bets for Grandmaster are probably She-Hulk and Thanos. She-Hulk has the taunt from those traumas, so it's going to make it a lot easier to bait special attacks. And then Thanos has the unstoppable heavy counter, or the unstoppable counter from his block to give you easy openings, and he just has really solid damage as well, and a very easy knockdown in phase 1. So Thanos and She-Hulk are definitely your best bets for the initial part of this fight, and then if you need a reverse control option for phase 3 and phase 4, specifically phase 4, because phase 3 is just perma inverted controls, phase 4 is when things get crazy. If you need an option for that, that's why Vision is on the team, and Vision will clean that up just nice for you. But that was only one side, and that was only one path. So the other path, the Sauron path, I didn't take this path. But if I had to take a guess on the champions that were used for the first 3 fights, I would say Sauron was probably taken by She-Hulk, Hitmonkey was probably taken by Thanos, and America Chavez was probably taken by She-Hulk. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure, just off the top of my head, those options make sense for that, for those 3 specific fights. And then there are other options. There are other paths you can go down for this run. Specifically, the Jubilee path, I think, is very, very possible with the Deathless team. If you go Jubilee into Mantis, I think that is definitely a viable third path. All of the other paths are a lot more, let's say, restrictive and maybe not as flexible. Maybe outside of Red Goblin, because I think you could do the Red Goblin path with this team fairly easily as well. But yeah, outside of that, I think the third best, or like second best if you count the initial 2 paths on the left here as sort of equal, I would say the second best path is the Jubilee path. She-Hulk absolutely dominates the Jubilee fight, so you can use her there. Thanos will absolutely crush Immortal Abomination, just push him to special 2 and it's no problem. You can use Guillotine or She-Hulk for Diablo, doesn't matter, it's going to work just fine. Squirrel Girl, you can use Thanos, King Groot, Guillotine. Anybody really works for Squirrel Girl, so that's fine if you go down this way. Silver Centurion, I have heard from reliable sources that Deathless Vision at a high enough rank can solo this fight. So Silver Centurion, very difficult, but Vision handles him. So if you want to go down this way, make sure your Vision is at least rank 2, and if you really want to ball, if you really want to believe in Deathless Vision, take him up to rank 3, and you should have a great time on this fight. I probably will go back and do this fight with Deathless Vision just to see how it feels and get a video out there for people who maybe want that actual content in the fight itself and not just me telling them that the fight can happen. So Deathless Vision definitely works for Silver Centurion from very reliable sources, and then obviously you could use Thanos and King Groot as well. And then Spidey, you can use She-Hulk here. She does fantastic. Deathless Vision also works very well. And then Thanos will also do pretty decent. And I bet Guillotine is also pretty solid because of the degen damage being direct and bypassing all of that resistance. Sunspot, you can really use anybody for. Thanos, She-Hulk, Vision, Guillotine. You just don't use King Groot because he's immune to Incinerate. But anybody else works just fine. And then going down on this side, Mantis can be done by literally anybody, so just take your pick. Whoever you want to use for Mantis is fine. Future Ant-Man, that's probably Thanos' best fight in all of Necropolis. I think he's probably the second best Future Ant-Man counter in the entire game in terms of the Necropolis Future Ant-Man. I think Beta Ray Bill's probably number 1, and then either Serpent or Thanos is number 2. But regardless, he is one of the best Future Ant-Man counters in Necropolis in the entire game. So Thanos will definitely do a lot of work for you here. And then Kitty Pryde can really be taken by anybody. Thanos works great. Vision would probably be fine. She-Hulk would do pretty well. And then Guillotine would also do pretty well. And then you get to Sandman. Sandman is probably just a simple She-Hulk fight. I haven't seen anybody go down this lane yet, but I would think that's the grit passive, or the grit buff you get from She-Hulk from countering special attacks and heavy attacks is going to make the Sandman fight very easy. So I'd say She-Hulk is that fight. Spidey Supreme, Probably just She-Hulk. King Groot, no, actually don't use King Groot because the regen will get copied and he will instantly heal. So don't use King Groot for this fight. But you could use She-Hulk, you could use Guillotine. Really anybody but King Groot will work for this fight. So just don't use King Groot. Get this fight down. It's kind of a slog, but it works. So don't panic. Except if you're using Thanos and then you inflict the panic debuff. But that's a pun. Anyway, Null here. Null can really be done by anybody. I wouldn't recommend using She-Hulk, although she definitely would work. Actually, now thinking about it, she probably would work pretty well because the grit is going to get past that unstoppable when he triggers corruption. And you can bait specials and basically always be in corruption, but you're always sort of avoiding the block damage from just taking basic hits on block. So I guess Shield could work here. I think Thanos Guillotine probably feel a little better. Maybe more so Thanos than Guillotine because Null has degen resistance. So Guillotine is going to suffer from the degens not dealing as much damage. So I'd say Thanos, She-Hulk, and probably King Groot are your best bets here. And then for Shocker, I'd probably say Thanos, King Groot are the champions you want to use here. She-Hulk probably does fine as well. And then Guillotine Vision will also do, just as well if you use them properly. But overall, those are the 3 paths that I recommend being the easiest paths. You definitely can do other paths, specifically on the right side here. The Odin path and the Red Goblin path could definitely be done, but it would be a lot more difficult, especially the Red Goblin trap node using certain champions like She-Hulk for some of these fights would probably be a little annoying, and I wouldn't necessarily recommend running it. I think there are other easier paths to run for this entire challenge. Like I said, Titania and Sauron being the easiest paths, and then Jubilee through Mantis is also very easy. If you wanted to go Jubilee through Elsa, you could also do that. Elsa, probably a super easy fight with Thanos or Guillotine. Purgatory will get destroyed by She-Hulk, and then Quicksilver will get destroyed by She-Hulk or Thanos, whatever you want. Pick your poison, doesn't really matter. So overall, that's what I recommend for in the paths and team building. Well, team building is already done for you because there's only 5 champs. But those are the paths that I recommend for this challenge. And my rank champion recommendation, if you can get any character here to rank 3, get either She-Hulk or Guillotine up to rank 3. Probably She-Hulk more than Guillotine. I think she has more reach, but Guillotine is impossible to stop. Like, your damage type is so difficult to counter because it's direct damage over time. So if you're landing crits with Guillotine, and you will be landing a lot of crits with this synergy team, Guillotine is going to be crazy. So if you can get Guillotine to rank 3, amazing. If you can get Guillotine, She-Hulk, and Thanos to rank 3, you're going to be cruising. If you want to get all of them to rank 3, like I did for my free-to-play account, that's even better. But you don't need all of them at rank 3. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I did my main account run with just Thanos and She-Hulk at rank 3, so you definitely do not need to have Guillotine up there, but if you would like to rank her, she is an exceptional clearer, and I can vouch from personal experience and watching other people use rank 3 Guillotine that she is exceptional in here. King Groot, you can use him, you cannot use him. He does have use, and you can use him for a handful of fights like I mentioned on that initial path that I went over for Sauron and Titania, but if you don't rank or use King Groot, you probably won't notice a huge difference. The main champions here are Thanos, She-Hulk, and Guillotine, and then if you need that counter for Phase 4, that's where you bring in Vision. So that is going to do it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'm kind of trying to rush this out there so people have this sort of reference guide for content. I also have the VOD from my main account run, and then the itemless free-to-play run that I did is also a full video on the channel if you want to see 2 different yet the same runs. It's just different teams, or it's just different ranks of the characters. But the run itself is the same path. So if you're looking for content like that, that is up on the channel. And then this video hopefully gives you a rough idea of what the path you want to run down and what rank you want to bring certain champions. One big disclaimer before I fully end off things here. Make sure when you're running this, you have the highest level of Relic available for each character. Doesn't really matter what the relic is, as long as it's just the highest available relic. So like for Thanos, for instance, I have my 6-star Thor relic. For King Groot, you can run Guillotine. I'm sorry, not Guillotine, Gamora or Thor. She-Hulk, Hulk is the best relic. Vision, obviously run the Vision relic. And then Guillotine, Deathless Guillotine, you want to run the Ghost Rider relic for her. So the highest level of relics for all of those champions is ideal. If you don't have the specific relic for the character that I mentioned, totally fine. Just any 6-star or 5-star relic is going to work here. So that is officially going to do it. Thank you all very much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed the video. If you enjoyed it, and I really hope you did, please consider hitting that subscribe button. I'm at 39,700 or 800 subs at this point in the time of recording this video. So if I could hit 40,000 before the end of January, that would be fantastic. I would be greatly appreciative of that, and maybe we'll do like a celebration stream when we hit it. And then sometime over the course of this year, I would love to hit over 50 and 60,000 subscribers. So if you would like to help me out with that journey, I would greatly appreciate it. And of course, if you hit that like button, that helps me out and gets the video out to more people and tells YouTube that the content I'm making is extremely helpful. So thank you all once again for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Peace.